Good afternoon, my name is Tina Gauthier Santiago, and this is my final paper for emergency management for Dr. Brian O'Reilly. I've included my certification statement, the table of contents, and let's begin. So emergency management in the United States describes the contributions of stakeholders' involvement in the 4 phases of emergency management response to natural and man-made emergency disasters. So stakeholders include local, state, and federal responses that also involve community as well and as nonprofit organizations. So stakeholders involves anyone who can be affected by the disaster, can be involved in the planning aspects to help mitigate the situation. So the process occurs in 4 phases. One is the mitigation process, which is the pre-planning. And preparedness, taking action, bringing awareness to different situations, and encouraging all people that are within the community to be involved in creating an action plan of some sort for themselves to keep themselves safe during a natural or man-made disaster. So it also includes the recovery efforts, which is the response during the incidents, as well as the reevaluation of the processes and determining new areas of opportunity to continue to mitigate, learning from the past. So the process occurs in 4 phases. It's mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Emergency management also happens in a cycle. So after Hurricane Maria, they had to revisit and identify what went wrong, and so they can be better to improve the preparedness. So Hurricane Maria happened in 2017, where 2 meteorologic events were recorded by the United States Weather Service, impacting the Caribbean islands. So it was Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Maria. Maria's central eye took about 8 hours to cross over Puerto Rico. However, the storm impacted the island for a considerably longer period of time. Any building without a concrete roof had it blown off or severely damaged. Maria completely wiped out Puerto Rico's electrical infrastructure, leaving more than 3 million people without power. As a result, over $100 billion in damages and the estimated loss of 4,500 lives in the following months after the hurricane. The power outages lasted for weeks. Cell phone towers were down. More than half of the island was without clean water. Thousands of homes were completely destroyed, displacing families. And 3 years later, they're still working on recovery efforts. So Hurricane Maria was pretty devastating for the island of Puerto Rico. Some of the risks that occur in Puerto Rico is the fact that there are damaging rain and winds that threaten the infrastructures. The infrastructure is referring to like the roads, when trees go down. It's a very mountainous region. So roads are not the typical highways that we see in the United States, but rather they're very curvy. They go up mountains, back down mountains. So when we talk about the mountainous regions, we're talking about rainforests. We're talking about a lot of trees. So when they go down, it blocks roads, and it can be devastating during the time of a hurricane if you're trying to evacuate or even trying to seek medical services. So the lack of the resources to repair or recover for potential disasters is definitely one of the high risks. So due to these threatening infrastructures, or what happens when it damaging rains and winds, it causes flooding. So the flooding affects, again, if you can see some of these images here, it affects the foundation of where homes are built on. So landslides occur, as well as basically destroying the home, so you completely lose that. Also, coastal regions flood because it is an island, is surrounded completely by water. A lot of the homes are are actually built around the coastal region. So you can see in these images, they're literally stacked on top of each other. So if you have one house falls, it falls on another. So it can really cause the loss of life and property. So these risks we would have to take into account in the preparedness aspects. So the lack of preparedness led to the great deal of damages that were incurred after Hurricane Maria in 2017. So the key stakeholders, natural disaster response and recovery efforts begin at the local and state level, and the federal government serves in a supporting role. The role of the federal government is to provide an orderly and continuing means of assistance by federal government to state and local governments in carrying out their responsibilities to alleviate the suffering and damage which result from a major disaster. The National Response Framework, the all-hazard approach that collaborates with local and state partners to prepare for and respond to disasters and emergency incidents within a structural organization. So basically they coordinate and come up with a plan. So on how to support different regions in the event of disasters and respond accordingly. The fact is that, a great deal of this work relies on FEMA. And FEMA is the Federal Emergency Management Administration. And resulting from these hazards, Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico experienced a Category 4 hurricane. And it basically, as they anticipated, 70,000 landslides. So it's 70,000 landslides. Could you imagine how many people are affected? So it's the entire island, basically. So theories of disaster. So evaluating the theories of disasters to know what's happening, when to act, how to respond, and how to effectively support in the emergency response. So you have the warning signs, you have the event is predicted, warning systems are in place, everyone is notified that there is a hurricane, and you begin to react. Well, you have communities that react and begin to prepare for the impact of it. And then you have the data is being collected and communicated. So in order to prevent situations and encourage people to secure their belongings, secure their homes, secure themselves. So it also happens in stages. So the environment is assessed after the incident. The recovery process begins. So the environment is assessed. The secondary assessment is looking for who might need additional aid, communities, social capital, local volunteers, so on and so forth. Building resilience is one of the key elements to helping to mitigate emergency management response. So using communication networks to put the information out there. So in short, one of the unfortunate things that occur in Puerto Rico is that you have communities that live in a culture where it's like, oh, I can't control anything, or, they're relying on somebody else to support them. So building resilience is really getting into the community and helping them help themselves. So it's part of the preparedness process that definitely has to get invested in within the Puerto Rican community in order to really, really support the catastrophic occurrences that occurred during this. So even like determining where to build a home, or unfortunately many homes are built with like just wood, and they have tin roofs and so on and so forth. So it's important to really educate the community on how to, or things that they can do to support themselves, because hurricanes are going to be continuous. So creating a collaborative emergency plan. What that means is a collaborative emergency plan involves all the stakeholders. So it is the governor in Puerto Rico communicating with the federal government, most likely through FEMA, in creating an emergency plan kit that gives you all of the different ideas and ways that you can support support the community when the disaster occurs. Like, who is going to be responsible for what? It involves like community organization. It involves in Puerto Rico there's a lot of different mayors, so it's a lot of the heads of areas that getting together and really coming up with a comprehensive plan to help identify what your needs are and how they can be addressed with the support through organizations such as FEMA. So one of the key concepts to exposure is communication. The right message at the right time from the right person can save lives. Every natural disaster is unique, and emergency responders have to quickly adapt to the ever-changing nature of a crisis. To be able to be more quickly and effectively dismantle messages before, during, and after an emergency makes it a key part in preparedness. Knowing when to evaluate or take cover can save lives. These messages can be broadcast, providing information about preparedness, including ways to secure your person and belongings, as well where you can find shelter. Strategies for emergency management. Major challenges post Hurricane Maria was the access to care, food, and environmental damage. It is well understood that there must be better preparations going forward in all programs operating on the island of Puerto Rico. Recognizing these events will continue to occur, efforts can be made to build the resilience and recovery processes and integrate into the preparedness planning. Emergency preparedness means everyone makes a plan, they build a kit, and stay informed. Now, one of the main challenges that occurred during Hurricane Maria was the loss of communication. So the loss of electricity led to the loss of communication. The loss of communication led to delayed efforts and really hindered the entire process. So one of the things that FEMA has invested in is it has taken mitigation action 3 years after the hurricane and authorized $9.6 billion to help rebuild Puerto Rico's power grid, thereby attempting to secure the electrical grid or infrastructure. It can repair and replace thousands of miles of transmission and distribution lines. So me personally, I would consider looking into other sources of electrical power because of the fact that it is an island. It's very challenging to bring resources to the island. So we should be looking into how the island can be self-sufficient. So self-sufficient would maybe be like electrical grids that are built on renewable energy, solar energy, and making sure that the structures can hold and withstand the hurricane. So I've also included my references here, and I will put the link there. Thank you so much. And creating a collaborative emergency plan is the key. And planning. Thank you. Have a good day.